Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another Wednesday Wellbeing. I'm Beth. This afternoon we're going to be looking at face coverings or face masks now that we're required by law to wear them in supermarkets and shops, as well as in NHS sites and on public transport. It's clear now that there is scientific evidence that shows that they are effective in slowing the transmission rate and therefore in slowing the death rate from coronavirus also, as long as it's used alongside hand washing and social distancing. Mainly it's by preventing the wearer from passing on the virus to other people, and this is because we can have up to 14 days of being free of symptoms before we start to develop symptoms once we've caught coronavirus. There's up to 25% of cases of coronavirus are actually totally without symptom, so people can have it without knowing that they have. So don't forget, there's no way of knowing whether you're infectious or not. And what masks work because although the virus is microscopically tiny, it's passed on in droplets of saliva when we talk or sneeze or cough, or even when we're breathing. And so the mask catches the droplets of saliva that might even be small enough that you can't see them. The rules apply to adults and children over 12. If you have children of 11 or under, they should be supervised if they are wearing a mask, and children 3 or under shouldn't wear a mask. Other than children, the only exemptions on the rules are for people with health problems. So that's either physical or mental or cognitive health problems that affect their ability to put the mask on or take it off, or the wearing bit in between. And the other category of people that are exempt from wearing them are people who are dependent on lip reading in order to communicate, or at least those who are with somebody who is dependent on lip reading. So there's no specific list of conditions that this applies to, and there is reason for that, because it depends on your individual experience of any condition and the severity of that condition and the impact it has on your life. And there's lots of misinformation around this. There's been a lot in the papers and being shared on social media suggesting that it's dangerous for people with asthma or COPD to use face masks, and that's not strictly true. It's only the people who are the very most ill with those conditions for whom it's dangerous to wear them, and for those people it's probably too risky for them to go outside in any case, because they really wouldn't want to catch the virus. So it's up to the individual or the person responsible for the individual to assess whether or not they are safely able to use a mask. I'm asthmatic, and my asthma has led me to have several hospital admissions in the past. So I've done a lot of reading around this to make sure I'm clear. And it's evidence that it's not at all straightforward. And the British Lung Foundation, for example, recommends that somebody with a lung condition tries wearing a mask at home for a couple of minutes to start with and see how they respond to it. And then to gradually build up the length of time that they wear it for at home to get used to it, and to try and see whether you can tolerate it for a long time and tolerate it while doing activities as well. So not necessarily running a marathon, but if you can tolerate it while sweeping the floor or doing the washing up, you're much more likely to be able to tolerate it when in a supermarket and walking about. So the same applies to most physical health problems as well. If you're concerned about whether or not you should be wearing a mask, you can try it out at home and see if it has any adverse effects. And if you're still unsure, it's worth asking your GP. But most people with physical conditions that make them too ill to tolerate wearing a mask will be too ill to get out and about in any case. Usually when we do experience what seems to be breathing problems using a mask, it's usually at the beginning when we're just getting used to it, and it's to do with nervousness and discomfort and the unusual feeling. Or it may be that you have the wrong mask for you. We're all different, and so different styles or fabrics or whatever may be beneficial to us and not to other people. I did get one mask that I bought on eBay that was a homemade mask by somebody who it was a heavier weight fabric than some are, and there was 2 layers of fabric, and I didn't get on with it because it was too it was too sort of baggy around my mouth, so that when I breathed in, it got sucked into my mouth, and it had some quite loose fibres which did irritate my chest a little bit. I mean, taking a puff of my Ventolin, my salbutamol inhaler, was enough to rectify that and without a problem, but still I decided that I would prefer to use other masks that don't do that. And don't forget, if you have got medical problems yourself, specifically physical problems, it's probably more important for you to avoid getting the virus as well. And although the main focus of wearing face masks or face coverings is about preventing passing on the virus to other people, most of the research does show that there is some level of effect on protecting us as well, even if that effect is fairly minimal. So it may well be worth wearing a mask for that reason. As I say, any questions you have, do contact your GP. As for people who have cognitive difficulties or maybe sensory problems that affect using a mask, so perhaps people with autism or so on, again, you may be able to build up tolerance by the familiarity of practicing wearing the mask at home. It can be very difficult for some people to get used to something new, but if the person as well doesn't understand why it's important, that makes it an extra level of difficulty. And if it's a problem, then again it's a situation where you would be justified in not wearing a mask. But just be aware that if it's only a minor problem, it may be something that you can overcome with practice or with trying different styles again. Anxiety and mental health conditions may be a bit more complicated, or maybe not. As I say, the most likely cause of the sensation that you can't breathe when you're wearing a face covering, it is related to anxiety. Most of us actually initially, when we first start to wear a mask, experience that to some level or another. But it can be really helpful if you are particularly anxious to try and identify what it is that's specifically making you anxious. So it might be that you're feeling claustrophobic, and so it might be that you want to try different styles of face mask that may be less claustrophobic for you. And it might be that in that case, a scarf or something of that description is more easy for you to tolerate, and scarves and bandanas are allowed. And one thing that I have is that they're variously called neck gaiters or head tubes, these, which is a long thin tube of fabric, and you can just wear these over your nose and mouth, and there's nothing tying, there's nothing looped around your ears. There's a bit more space and room around the bottom here, and yet it does sort of grip neatly onto the side of your face. It meets all the requirements of the law. I got this one in the Co-op for just £3, and that has loops that go around the back of your head rather than over your ears. Some people have very sensitive ears. If it's the case that you're particularly anxious about whether or not the mask is protecting you rather than other people, you might want to research on the internet what type of face mask provides the most protection to you as well as protecting other people. It may be that your anxiety is about information that you've seen in sensationalist headlines in the newspapers or being shared in posts on Facebook or other social media. And there's a lot of myths around the subject of masks. I've seen posts going around suggesting that coronavirus can still get through masks because the virus is so tiny, and as I've said, that might be true, except for the fact that the virus doesn't float around on its own. It is contained within droplets of saliva that come from your mouth or nose, and therefore the mask only needs to be sufficient to stop the droplets of saliva. A lot of posts suggesting that if you use a face mask, you'll end up breathing harmful levels of carbon dioxide, but there is no evidence to suggest this at all. Medical and healthcare staff have been wearing full PPE for 12-hour shifts working on coronavirus wards, and if there was anything dangerous in this respect about the masks, we would have lots of healthcare staff who would be very ill. You should see a picture about now of my friend Lisa, who is a nurse who works on a COVID ward, and you can see how much more she has to protect herself than we do out in shops, and the amount that she has to wear, she gets very uncomfortable. And in comparison, us wearing just a mask or even just a scarf around our face when we're in a supermarket for 40 minutes is not going to have any negative health effects on us. The more we wear a mask, the less people like my friend Lisa will have to have all that get up on for long periods of time, because the spread will be slower. If you do get anxious in response to posts like that and information or fake news like that being shared, do fact check things, and I'll put links to various fact checking websites or Facebook pages, and inform yourself about the science and how the masks work. I will put some links to research in the comments section. A lot of the research is quite technically, academically worded, so it's not entirely obvious. But if you read the abstract and recommendations sections, that can be the most helpful bits. If you find it difficult to identify specifically what it is that's making you anxious about wearing a mask, or if you've worked out and you've taken some measures but you're still anxious, generally there's things you can do to make it easier. As I say, build up your using of the masks at home, as I've discussed with the physical health problems, and do some sort of activity while you're wearing the mask, just to get yourself fully used to it. And the more you wear it, the more used to it you'll get, and the less you'll think about it. And if you do that in the controlled environment of your home, then you'll feel much more confident when you go out and about. You can combine using the breathing techniques we've discussed in previous weeks with wearing the mask, and I'll put links to the relevant videos as well as to mindfulness techniques and grounding techniques, which will help to again take your attention away from the mask itself and draw your mind onto other things. Again, try different styles of masks. The more comfortable you are with your mask, the less anxious you're going to be and the more safe you're going to be anyway. And there's lots of different styles, as I've said already. This is one of my most comfortable ones here. It has a filter pocket. It has very soft elastic that's not tight. So there's no gapping here. It's properly under the chin, over the nose. It has a nose wire here, so there's not much air escaping that way. And so all the air is going through the fabric, which is the way it gets filtered. And it's very comfortable. I'm very happy with the colour and look of the mask as well, which helps me to feel more comfortable and relaxed. And the other category of people who can be exempt from wearing a mask are those people who rely on lip reading to communicate. And you are starting to be able to get online now masks with a clear plastic window in them so that the mouth is visible, and in a lot of ways that's much nicer for all of us because we can see people's facial expressions, and it's easier to recognise people, and it's easier for all of us to communicate when we can see somebody's face properly. It's helpful if we can all be aware of people and the specific needs they have, whether it's communication or there's all kinds of disabilities that may affect people's tolerance of mask wearing. So it helps if we can all be community spirited and try to wear masks where we can, but also be accepting and tolerant of other people who struggle with wearing a mask. Whatever your condition, whether it's a physical condition or anxiety or cognitive problems or whatever it is, you can download exemption certificates that you can either print off and wear on a lanyard around your neck or keep in a pocket to show people when relevant, or you can have them on your phone and show people your phone if you need to. And I will put a link into the comments again for where you can obtain the exemption certificate. If you've tried to get yourself used to wearing masks at home and you haven't managed to, don't worry. You are justified in an exemption if you can't tolerate it for genuine reasons. But don't forget that you can carry both a mask and an exemption certificate. So if you start out wearing a mask and it gets too much for you, take it off, and you've still got your exemption certificate there as backup if it's needed. Anyway, as always, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments or send a message to the page, or there's useful contacts coming up any minute now. But for the moment, I will wish you a good week, and I'll see you again next week. Bye bye for now.